The top of the obelisk is especially important too. The obelisk was often in the center of the temple, and it towered above even the pylons. So it was in fact the first object that was struck by the rising sun. And the top of the obelisk, shaped like a tiny little pyramid, it's called a pyramidion, was covered in ancient times with metal, a mixture of gold and silver. And so it reflected the rays of the sun brilliantly when the first rising of the sun in the east came over the temple walls and struck the top of the obelisk. Now it's called a pyramidion, which simply means a tiny pyramid. And again, the Greeks were playing games with the word pyramid, because when they saw these gigantic buildings at Giza, the pyramids of Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure, they were, of course, enormously impressed. But at the same time, they said, no, we're not impressed. This reminds us of the shape of one of our cakes, which is called a pyramis. And so our word, which we use all the time about these marvelous buildings, pyramid, to the ancient Greeks, was simply a cake that they would cook in the kitchen and serve for your afternoon tea. Not that they had tea in those days. So this pyramidion is a tiny pyramid, and at the same time, the shape represents something very, very important in the temple of Heliopolis, and that was called the Benben stone. And this Benben stone represented the first earth that came up every year when the waters of the inundation, which took place in the summer months in Egypt, when the waters in the inundation were beginning to recede. Every year, you see, the Nile flooded, and it was a great mystery to the Greeks why it should flood in the summer, because most rivers, of course, flood in the winter, when there is snow, when there is rain, but the Nile floods in the summer. They couldn't understand why. And this Benben stone, which is the same shape as the pyramidion, represented the first earth that came up when the waters were beginning to recede. And for the farmer, it was a symbol, of course, that the land would again be fertile, the mud from the south would have been brought down, and he would have a marvelous harvest, as always occurred in Egypt, a land of tremendous agricultural wealth.